As we've gotten going in Photoshop, I'm sure that some of you are anxious to begin using some of the tools and skills, and you want to get into some of this stuff. But because it is such a huge program, you have to understand where you're going or you get lost very quickly. Now, some of you have only gotten your fingers wet into layers, selections, masks, and adjustments. Others, you might be a little ways in there. But today I'm opening up the opportunity for you to dive in to all of those, to understand how using all of these essential skills, whether you're using them in a very advanced and complex manner, or just the basics and understanding what they do and how to use them. It can be confusing and overwhelming, and by all means, if you would prefer to slowly work through and learn the skills before jumping into this project, you certainly may, and quite frankly, I would even encourage it for many of you. But for those of you that would like to jump in and start making something, I have a quest for you that's going to force your hand into utilizing layers, utilizing specific selections, even as a little bit of an advanced selection, masks, and adjustments, all within a single document, rather than learning the specifics of them as is required through the Photoshop quest chain. This quest is, as some of you may already know, the Mutant Jack quest. Introduce Napoleon Dynamite. If you don't know him, you gotta check it out. This dude's awesome. Anyway, you are going to create your own mutant. First, I'm going to have you follow along with my directions, my skills. But again, it's going to force you to understand how to build in Photoshop. In Illustrator, we built using shapes. We did lots and lots of shapes, lines, colors, pretty simple. But in Photoshop, where we're working with images, we're working with pixels, we're building layer on layer, we're considering how those layers work together. That is very different than Illustrator, where really layers were more an organization thing. And believe me, you do need to organize in Photoshop too. If you didn't watch the rundown video where I showed you that 1,000-layer document, you'll understand why organization of layers can be so important. But you are going to use multiple layers, and seeing how they interact with each other is an absolute essential for anyone that's going to dive into using Photoshop and using images. One of the toughest parts of Photoshop as we go further, though, and I want you to realize this now, is that while for this project I'm going to allow you to use images from the internet, using Photoshop is a very copyright sensitive kind of question mark, because you can't simply go on to Google and use any images you find. That is not the way that the world works. People own those images, and it's controversial, but they're not yours, and that is plagiarism. So to use Photoshop effectively, you have to begin learning how to create your own images. You have to learn how to find images that are allowed to be used, and you also have to learn how to photograph or build with your own images from the start. And that'll be something that continually we'll dive into, and that's the reason that many students and designers alike choose to build artwork in Illustrator and bring them over to Photoshop for development later on. That also will be upcoming as we dive into the major final projects of the semester here in, I don't know, for some of you maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Alright, with that said, you guys are free to get to work for today. That means either you can jump into that new Mutant Jack quest, or you can continue on with that Photoshop quest chain, looking at layers, selections, masks, adjustments, and so on. Please let me know if you're concerned or have a question.